I'm with Giles Dixon, lawyer, to talk about the regulations for websites that are selling goods or services in the UK. So e-commerce sites, what has to be on there? So what are the basics?
Well, there are quite a lot of regulations on information you have to provide on a website, starting with the basics. If you're a registered business in the UK, the Companies Act requires you to display the company name, the registered office address, the company number, and the place where the company was incorporated. That's either England and Wales or Scotland in the UK. And you have to show the VAT number, assuming you're registered for VAT.
And specifically for e-commerce sites, is there anything more?
Well, there are various consumer protection regulations which require quite a lot of extra information. To name some of the items, if your company name is different from your trading name, then you have to show the trading name as well. You have to have contact details, including an email address. You have to show a geographical address from which you're operating. And if you are a member of a trade organisation or a professional association, you've got to show those details as well. And that's before you get to the price and other details of what you're selling.
But if I have a shop, surely I just need to carry on selling from my website in the same way?
It's not quite as simple as that. If you're going into a shop to buy something, you'll pick up the product, you'll see what it is, and you'll know what the price is. A website's a bit different because you won't actually have the product in front of you. So, and the terms and conditions have to be formalized. So if you're selling from a website, you need a set of terms and conditions which are accessible to the customer, and you need to have them accepted by the customer, which is why most people have a tick box on their websites, although you should always read those terms and conditions before buying. Amongst the things that have to be displayed are the prices, whether or not they include tax and delivery charges. And if they don't, then you have to say what those delivery charges are going to be. There will also be a clause which allows the customer to cancel. This is a consumer contract. Any consumer must have the right to cancel the purchase within 14 days, starting from the day after the contract is made.
We see cookie notices on websites a lot nowadays. What should we know about those?
You need to talk to your web developer out where you put a cookie notice, but it's usually a pop-up box or a little notice that says the cookies are used. And in addition to the cookie notice, you need a cookie policy. You need to explain somewhere on your website what the cookies are used for.
And what do I need to know about privacy policies?
Well, here again, there is law. The Data Protection Act requires anybody who collects or processes personal data such as name, address, telephone number, credit card details, they have to use that data or process that data in accordance with certain principles which are set out on the Information Commissioner's website. And the usual way of dealing with that is for the person selling to have a privacy policy on the website which explains that process and the security that they attach to the information that they'll use and how they'll use it. If you are going to, for example, use the addresses for marketing material for newsletters, then you ought to mention that in your privacy policy. And indeed, when you send out newsletters to people on your database, you have to have an unsubscribe button, so if they don't want to continue receiving data from you, they're entitled to cancel.
Can I just copy and paste a privacy policy from someone else's website?
You can, but you might be in breach of their copyright, depending on where it came from. I would recommend that you download a template from a website such as Contract Store and then adapt it to your particular needs, because depending on what you're doing with data, it may be different from somebody else's privacy policy. You need to have it properly scrutinised and written. I mean, I'm talking about UK law, and obviously, depending on what country you're in, the rules are likely to be different. Although most of what I've been talking about are actually EU-wide regulations.
You mentioned copyright. Is that something we should always put onto our website?
You don't have to. If the material that you put on your website, images or text, is your material, your original material, and somebody else uses it, then they would technically be in breach of copyright. But having said that, it does no harm to remind people that it is your copyright, and if they use it, they do so at their peril. Quite often people put a disclaimer notice on their website which basically says that we're not accepting liability, responsibility for anything that we tell you. It may not be complete, it may not even be accurate. It's not necessary for most people, but depending on the nature of your business, it may give you some comfort. The other thing that sometimes people put notices up on their websites are about links. If you have links to other websites, you might want to say that you don't accept any responsibility for what might be on those sites. There is one other point which I haven't mentioned, a legal point, because copyright notices and disclaimers aren't legal requirements. But last year there was a new regulation introduced from the European Union which says that anybody who sells goods and services online has to offer the customer the right to use an online dispute resolution process, and there is in fact an EU ODR website. Since Brexit is going to happen fairly soon, I should say that most of the regulations I've been talking about come from European Union law, but I think it's unlikely that there's going to be any change. Well, there won't be anything for the next 2 years because we're still within the European Union, and after that, this is consumer protection stuff, and it's also good practice, and I wouldn't expect much of it, if any of it, to be got rid of by the government, although I can see that might happen with a few things.